everyone. You know, there are some of us that are called directional challenged. Some of us, not all of us. I remember receiving a call in the office one day. This guy called and said, I just flew in and I'm in Lexington and I have an appointment with your boss. Could you please give me directions how to get to Bluegrass Station? I looked around because I know how it is for me. Everybody in the office were busy. So I said, all right then, hold on just a minute. I tried to think. He said, okay, I'm ready now. And so I said, well, you leave the airport, you get on 75, you get off and get on 64, and then when you see the sign that says Bluegrass Station, you turn right and then you turn left. He was kind of laughing. He said, well, ma'am, are there any signs? Can you just give me something else? And I go, no. I told you, you get off 75, you get on 64, and then you come to Bluegrass Station. So he says, okay, how did you get to work this morning? I said, I left my house, I got on 64, and then when I saw the sign that says Bluegrass Station, I turned right, and then I kept on going right. So he said, ma'am, can you please put somebody else on the line? And by that time I looked up, all my office mates were laughing. I go, what is wrong with this? I told him what he asked me. So they told me, Joyce, you don't have a GPS that works anywhere. Please do not give directions on this phone again. And that's how I am. My husband never asked me, where I've been or anything, because I don't know. I don't know those signs. That made me think of Peter Bruner. I found out about him at the museum. I saw his play here at Leeds. I read his book, and I cried every time because I knew how it felt when you wanted to go right and you end up going left. So Peter Bruner wrote a book, A Slave's Adventure Towards Freedom. And I go, why would you even say adventure? A slave's adventure towards freedom? Peter was born right here in Clark County in 1845. His enslaver was his father, John Bell Bruner. He was such a cruel, cruel man. At 10 years old, he took Peter and his sister to Irving, to the plantation up there. At an early age, he had so much abuse and misuse by his father. I remember reading the book, and it said that Peter would be beaten, not whipped, but beaten, if the wash wasn't white enough. Peter would stay up all night beating corn And if the hominy was too thin or if it was too thick, John would beat him. It had to be that he must have looked like his father. He never called him father. He always said my master. But it was so hard to think that that was his child. One day, it was Christmas time, and the slaves were happy because at least at Christmas time you got something nice. John started to drink, and he didn't need a reason to beat Peter, but he looked at him. And Peter knew that look, so he started running. He ran into the tannery. He picked him up and threw him in the tannery. And every time he tried to get out, he kicked him back in. And he tried to drown him. And he got out. So this was his daily life. But Peter said one time he may have needed 100 lashes, but I don't think so. Someone gave to Peter a skin cat, but he told Peter it was a skin rabbit. So Peter sold that skin rabbit, and everybody said it was the best liver that they ever tasted. But when he got home, everybody was upset. So he got 100 lashes at the whipping post. This was daily. So Peter said, all right, I know I'm just 11 or 12 or whatever, but I've got to get away. I've got to get away. So early in the morning, he looked out among the stars and he got that GPS going. And he walked 21 miles. And he was in Richmond. Peter, you're not going south. You're supposed to be going north to freedom. Oh my goodness. I've been looking for this. Honey, I found it. I don't know where it was. I wrote down some notes and I stuck it here. And I don't know where it came from. I'm like Peter. So he ended up walking those 21 miles, and then he got on the road to Lexington. He strutted around town. Oh, freedom, I'm going north. I'm going to get my freedom. Well, he didn't. He saw an empty train, and he said, it's got to be going north. So he climbed inside, and he waited. And he waited, and he said, well, I guess it's not going anywhere. So he got back out and walked around Lexington. And the slave catchers caught him and had to take him back to Irving, to John. That time he only got 150 lashes. His blood dripped on the floor. But he did what he was told to do, and he kept on. He asked his dad, kill me. Don't keep treating me like this. Just kill me. So he hired him out. And Peter says, it's got to be better than living with my master. But he was wrong. He was worse. So one of the other slaves named Phil, they got together and they decided, hey, we're going north. We have to get our freedom. So they made their plans And once again, they started out in the darkness of the night. And for real, this time they Mount Sterling, Flemingsburg, Sharpsburg, Cynthiana. They were going north. Oh, he was so excited. And then they were so exhausted. So they slept that night in a barn, one day away from the Ohio River. And the slave catchers caught them again. And they didn't have anywhere to put them, so they were keeping them in a building, 3 stories. And during the night, Peter said, throw me out the window. Don't take me back. Just let me die. Don't take me back. But they did. They had to take him back because they had to pay $80 a piece for he and Phil, and they were going to work and work. So they came from Irving to get the boys. To make sure that they didn't run away this time, they put chokers around them, took off their shoes, and said, by the time you get to Irving, you'll have no skin on those feet. You're not getting anywhere. So they went back, and nothing changed. John's drinking got worse. And when they brought him back to the plantation, he just looked at him again. He didn't throw a rock or a brick. He threw a stone at his child and hit him in the head. So after about a year, he said, I can't stay. And the guys on the plantation said, Peter, you got to leave. You can't stay here. So one more time, he planned to go north. One more time, 21 miles, and where was he again? Richmond. Oh, why in the world? But just by chance, he ran into a group of guys. They were going to Camp Nelson so they could be in the war and have their freedom. They were grinning and talking and joyful. So 21 miles more, 41 that day, they showed up at Camp Nelson. The soldiers said, what are y'all doing here? Peter said, we come to fight the rebels, and I want a gun. And I thought, do they really think they're going to give him some bullets to go in that gun? But after a week, they said, well, come on in. So after a week, they said, we are going to start a colored union, and you all can be in the army and fight. Things got a little better, but during that time, he wasn't the only one that has frostbite or smallpox or was hungry. When his battalion took apples off the tree, they put him in jail, but he was hungry. But things were better. Things were better. So after 2.5 years, he mustered out. He had his freedom. And for the first time in 18 years, he saw his mom in Winchester. She hadn't seen him. She didn't even know if he was alive. He stopped by to see his mom. But they knew that he could not stay. John Bruner was in Irving, and even though he had his freedom, he had to leave. So he left Winchester for the last time. He went to Ohio, Oxford, Ohio. He had family there. Oh, he was so glad to be there. And of course, the work was hard, trying to find a job, trying to make things work. But he did. Job after job after job. And in 2 years, he got married. Oh my goodness, he never gave up. After all he had been through, he never gave up. He was a handyman, he was a farmer, he was any job that he could find. And when the women's seminary burnt down, he began to work there at Oxford College. And later on, they merged with Miami University and all the jobs he had there. I guess it's like right now, the girls during that time, it was an election, and they had a debate, and they asked Peter, they said, well, can't you say something? And he did. Because you know what? As soon as he got to Oxford, he went to school. He took reading, writing, spelling, and geography. Now he knew how to do it. He took geography. East, west, where? So he did. And his speech was so wonderful. They put it in the Gazette Weekly, and it was in other newspapers. This man that was a slave. And they made him the official greeter of Miami University. The university was so pleased to have him on the campus that they gave him a suit with tails and a top hat so he could meet the visitors. He had a house now, a real house of his own. He had a family. He had 5 girls. He was so happy. But then there was no buts. When I finished reading it again, and I go, but Peter, your life was so hard. Why did you call it an adventure? Why was it an adventure to get what should have been yours? And he would say to me, Joyce, I was a slave. I was a houseboy. I was a handyman. I was a soldier. I wrote articles for the paper. I was the first black man to work at Miami University. I did all these wonderful things, and they were an adventure. So, oh my goodness, you're right. I mean, you're still alive. He said, all these things I was allowed to do through my pain, through my everything. It was an adventure to have a family that loved me. And then when I read on, it said that his name is on a plaque in Washington, D.C., the African American Civil War Memorial. That top hat today is at Miami University in a museum. Peter, the slave from Winchester, Kentucky. Wow, you're talking about an adventure? And then the year that he died, he was made mayor for today, 1938. And then he died at 93 years old. I said, Peter, oh my goodness, what an adventure. And now that I found this, I want to quote. Though my life has been one of many hardships, I feel there awaits for me a crown of righteousness, and I shall have rest forevermore. Peter, you found your North Star. You found it. You don't need a GPS anymore. Because he's free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty. Peter, you're free at last.